All right, we are very excited to have back on the pod for the first time since Cherry. That's how we just don't know time based on releases. Exactly. That's the easiest thing to do. Right. The Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe Russo. How's it going? How are you?
Good, guys.
Great.
How you doing?
Good to see you guys.
I think good. I think we're pretty solid.
We're on a nice break of shitty hot weather in New York City where everything smells like burning garbage. It's this nice, cool, like high 70s, low 80s today. So we're cruising.
You got out of the heat dome.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's that. They should do that. Like, you know how on like local weather, if it's like Thanksgiving, that they have like a little turkey in the corner on like the 5-day forecast, just burning garbage for New York. That's like all summer. Yeah. From Monday through
Friday. Not today.
The Gray Man. We talked about the Gray Man when we talked to you guys last time. We didn't have many details, and now we've literally seen it. Kind of crazy. For those who don't know what it's about, I'll give the quick synopsis from the CIA's top asset. His identity known to no one, uncovers agency secrets. He triggers a global hunt by assassins set loose by his ex-colleague, Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jessica Henwick. Big names, big production, going to be in theaters July 15th, limited release, and then it hits Netflix. It's finally here. All the hype. It's based on a book. So I got to ask you guys the first question here. Are you book is better people, or are you like us on this show where the movie is always better? I'm a book. Maybe it's because my reading comprehension level is like a 0, but that could be it.
I mean, movies are always more compressed than books. Obviously, you can't tell the same level of story in a film as you can in a book. We loved the book when we first read it. That's why we decided to adapt it. I mean, it was a really propulsive read. It was insane action. It was really clever. We also liked that it was tied in to the modern world in a way. Bond is 60 plus years old and Bourne is 20 years old, and it felt like a very modern hero. The Gray Man is, of course, he's an anti-hero. He's just really a guy looking for his freedom. That's the only thing he wants. And but he has a heart, and it gets activated when someone he cares about is in trouble. And it was a great opportunity for Evans to do something crazy as Lloyd Hansen, who's a sociopath.
Yeah, we were really impressed by him. We were also impressed by Ryan Gosling, and he's somebody where he's someone you realize had comedic chops already from his other movies? Because I remember we watched Nice Guys, and we were like, oh my God, this is like one of the funniest people we've ever seen.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen his SNLs. But,
Papyrus, the Avatar skit.
Hilarious. He's incredibly witty, very dry, awesome with improv. Like some of the funniest lines in the movie are Gosling's lines. He was amazing to work with.
Yeah,
we absolutely loved working with him. And we've been huge fans of his for years. I mean, it's like everybody else. It's like Ryan Gosling's a complete badass. This was a perfect character for him as well. It was this like, he's so understated, Ryan. He's so minimalistic. And this is a character who has to like disappear into the shadows. He has to assassinate someone and move on without people noticing him. So, Ryan's very good at like being very low key and then charismatic and popping when he needs to as the character.
But I will say that even though we knew his work very well, it was one of the great discoveries, I think, of making this movie was starting to he's a very smart actor. He's a very smart filmmaker, Ryan, and just starting to sit with him early on and talk about the script and talk about the scenes. And he would just start pitching things and ideas. And there was a lot of wit and a lot of cleverness imbued in all of that. And I think it really helped made it better of a movie.
Sure. I think that helps with the character of Court too, because he kind of like mirrors that same sentiment in a way. A lot of like the wittiness, if that makes sense. And I like they say the minimalist humor too, because like you even notice that when he's getting like punched or stabbed, he's just like making these little like he's just like frustrated groans, and I just like that is so funny to me and very smart.
He's an existentialist. I mean, all this guy has known, he's had an abusive father growing up, and then he goes to prison, and then he gets conscripted by the CIA. So this is not a guy who's ever lived his own life, so he's trapped in a way. And Gosling does that like 15 times in the movie where he just groans. And we thought it was such an incredible character choice that he made.
He's got the classic Gosling look in this movie. I feel like, especially when he's like, he's in like a tiff and the hair kind of moves in front of his face. You get that in the La La Land, you get that in Blade Runner. But can I get a comment? Have you seen him with the platinum hair as Ken in the Barbie movie?
We
did. I thought it was genius.
It's amazing.
I told him that last night. I go, hey man, that's what you want. You want everyone paying attention. So I was glad. I thought those photos were hilarious, and the stuff down on Venice Beach on the rollerblades. Movie looks really funny.
Yeah, you did have a line too, a Ken Doll line, which was very funny in the movie. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but
yeah,
that was before he had that line. Comes from before he had that role.
That's crazy.
Very random.
We like to think that we inspired him to take the plot.
Yeah. You incepted it. Yeah, you incepted it. On the flip side, someone you've worked with plenty, Chris Evans, much different role than you're used to, at least with your movie. I mean, you were the ultimate good boy, maybe except he's a bad boy a little bit in Endgame, I guess. But how cool is it just to get to have Chris, who looks great in the movie, by the way, we'll get to the wardrobe in a second, just in a role that is so different than what has to be just mindlessly ingrained in your brain, what you're seeing with him with Steve Rogers.
Look, working with him on 4 movies with the character of Captain America over many years, like that was an amazing experience, because Joe and I used to always say to one another, man, there's nobody in the world that could play Captain America better than Chris. He was so good at that role. And but working with him over that time, we got to know him very, very well, both professionally and personally, and we understand his skills, we understand who he is, and we knew that he was capable of doing vastly different work, of course. And so I think it tickled all 3 of us to just think about doing something that was like as far away as you could possibly get from Captain America. And I think Lloyd Hansen in this movie is pretty much that.
I mean, the Marvel movies for a lot of actors have given them great freedom, right?
Yeah.
And I think Evans feels like, he's been really successful. He had a great run with Marvel. I think he's just interested in taking risks now for the rest of his career. And Lloyd certainly is a risk. He's completely insane.
Yeah, it's almost like his Knives Out character too. It's weird seeing him on the other side of things, but yeah, he did an amazing job. Something I think I've always appreciated about your guys' work is that I feel like you have a very great reverence for stunt work, and that's come across in all the early Captain America movies. And we've interviewed Sam Hargrave too, who you guys worked with a ton, obviously, and he is echoed that a lot. Why has that always been something? If that has been like sort of a priority for you guys?
I mean, look at Joe and I. Part of it is just this, Joe and I work as a team. So every day of our lives, we're collaborating with one another. We love the process of collaboration. So I think we value everybody we're making the movie with like that, whether it be stunts or production design, music, etc. You sort of like the process of making a movie for us is just coming together with this amazing group of people and figuring out what's possible. And challenging one another and surprising one another and having fun in that process. So yeah, and that certainly extends to stunt work. Now, stunt work has another level of specialness to it in the sense that it's also dangerous. So you have to be very, you have to approach that process respectfully, because those people are they train extremely hard, and they do risk injury in terms of doing what they're doing. And of course, we're all chasing ways to surprise and thrill an audience in ways they haven't seen before. So sometimes that pushes you to do more and more and more, but you have to do that safely. So to have a team together that you trust, that's creatively inspired, that's creatively connected with one another, but also sort of has the right sensibilities about how to do the job properly and safely, like that's a really special thing to create, and you can't take it for granted. So yeah, that's basically it.
I remember watching, I think, a behind the scene or somebody talking about the movie Police Story, and they're like, this is how you could tell fight choreography is done really well. Look how many hits they do before they do a cut. And that's something I noticed in this, and obviously among your other Marvel projects and stuff like that too. And some of the fight sequences in this, particularly towards the end, they're almost like samurai-esque, if that makes sense. I feel like I was watching like one of those old school Kurosawa fights. It was sick.
It's a showdown film. I mean, that's really the essence of what the movie's about, is just like, two immovable forces that smash into each other and who's going to win. We love those kinds of movies, and that's great that you brought that up, because we love those films growing up too. And I mean, we like this notion of like Once Upon a Time in the West. One of my favorite movies is, this idea that Brosnan and Fonda are gonna crash into each other at the end of the movie, and we're gonna see what happens. And there's some beautiful philosophy that sort of that comes out of their mouths on the way there, about how life is and what their perception of life is, and how their ideals, are in conflict with one another, and only one of them are going to be able to walk out. This is that kind of film, right? These two guys see the world in completely different ways. They both have an objective that is in conflict, and only one of them can win at the end of the movie. And so the movie is hopefully this very elegant journey towards these two guys smashing into each other in a very violent way.
Yeah. Wardrobe of this movie is fantastic, especially Chris Evans, which I couldn't think of what in my head. I'm like, I've seen him like this before, and I think it's the Marvel. Granted, we have how many Infinity Gauntlets on our desk?
3, I think, right now.
We have the Hulk sized one. We have the we have so many. It's ridiculous. So I think it's that. It's because I was thinking of Sebastian Stan and I, Tonya. That's why I was thinking of like the mustache and like the polo. Yeah. But that's so I haven't seen Chris Evans like that. But where did that start with the wardrobe for his look? Whose idea was that specifically? I don't know how tied it in with the book, but it looks awesome.
We wanted him Euro trash. We wanted this guy who was self-obsessed and wore overly tight shirt and pants.
Part of it was just trying to really again, we thought about these two characters, the Ryan Gosling character and the Chris Evans character, as these two sort of immovable forces that are just coming together, on an inevitable collision course with one another. And part of the fun of that for us was figuring out, how do we make these people more opposites? So if Ryan Gosling is the gray man, where he's quiet and controlled and disciplined and doesn't do a single action that's not necessary because he doesn't want to waste his energy because he may need it. How is Lloyd Hansen the opposite of that? How is he the loudest person in the room? How is he reckless? How, he just, and that the wardrobe was very much an extension of that in your face attitude that the character has, where he wants to sort of walk into every room and tear it up. But it's sort of grounded in that.
It's I like the Eurotrash. He looks like a discotheque guy. I can see that now that you mention it. Yeah. We got to give you guys credit. You filmed the movie in Prague and you didn't use the blue filter over the camera, which every single director loves to do whenever they're in Prague or Eastern Europe. They got to throw the big blue filter over everything.
We did not. We went warm with it. It's all warm colors.
I remember when we first were thinking about doing The Winter Soldier, and we were talking to some cinematographer about it, and he said, talking about the look of the movie. And he mentioned, like, are we going to use Marvel Blue? Marvel Blue. And we were like, oh, no, we can't. If there's something known as Marvel Blue, we have to run from it.
We're going to use Russo Gray. That's what
there you go.
Yeah. Don't fuck with that Marvel Blue. Yeah.
What would you guys say is like the gold standard of espionage movies? Like one that like you guys would say like that is like the ultimate spy movie that anyone should want to aspire to get to?
I think Ronin.
Yeah.
I am Ronin.
Oh yeah, great movie.
Yeah, and it's weird how it's sort of fallen off the radar, but it's one of the best action films ever made. It was an 80-year-old Frankenheimer basically just showing everyone how to do it. And I think that's probably, you asked about stunts earlier, it's like obsessions with movies like that, with McTiernan films. It's why we love practical stunts. We like merging them with VFX because we like the scale and ambition that can give you when you need it. But that's why, a lot of Winter Soldier was as practical as it could be until you got to the big third act. That's why a lot of this movie, except for, the plane sequence for obvious reasons, we certainly couldn't, blow up a real plane with actors on it. But, that's why a lot of this film is practical. And we train our actors really hard because we like you to see them on camera doing these things. So that is Gosling doing 90% of the fighting in the film. That is Chris Evans doing 90%. We only take actors out when we know it's going to be very dangerous.
I like that you mentioned Ronin. I only recently read that they crashed 80 cars making that movie.
And the sound design in it, that car chase down the freeway going the wrong way. I mean, it's all, it's
a good double feature for anyone watching Heat. I feel like if you watch one, you should watch the other. They're
agreed.
Yeah. It's funny that there's a big sequence in the movie where the Ana de Armas character is driving a red Audi RS7. And in order to do that, execute that sequence, we needed 7 those cars because we had to rig them in different ways. We had to wreck a few of them, etc. But it was like, it's pretty, it's a pricey car to have 7.
Yeah. Jesus. Would you like give them away after the movie's wrapped? You're like yeah, you want the extra Audi? You want the extra G-Wagon? What do you
doesn't
want?
have a wheel axle, but here we go.
Crew gift. What a crew gift that would be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Gray Man Reminder out theaters July 15th and the week after. You can watch it on Netflix. Go check it out in theaters though, because it does have a huge, big budget feel. Then check it out on Netflix. Show all the friends. But we got to talk about a couple other things before we go here today. Are you just completely like the cupboard of Marvel things to talk about? Are you as scraped clean on everything as humanly possible? Like, do you still have a couple like little secrets deep down that you're like, I got to keep this, just like cling on to it a little bit?
We don't, because that machine keeps going once you leave it. I mean, there's no we're buddies with everyone over there, but we've got our own shit going on and they've got their own shit going on. So there's not a lot of crossover. And I frankly rather show
any like old Easter eggs maybe that you haven't even dropped. It's like,
I don't know. At this point, there's so many Easter eggs. God knows what, I think we've talked about all of them at this point.
But that you look at those movies, that was the kind of opportunity where you just like, you spend it all on everyone. You have to, you don't hold back anything. And it sort of forces you into a position of having to find a new place to go, which is a good place to be creatively. But I think we pretty much
spent it all.
Yeah.
There was a Vanity Fair video the other day where Taika and Tessa Thompson were like looking over a scene from Love and Thunder, and she pointed out to him a scene that he had like misedited. Has there ever been a moment like that for you in any of your Marvel movies where like when you watched it back after it had already been released, you're like, shit, we should have fixed that?
There's one beat, I think it's in Infinity War, and we couldn't fix it. And it was Holland. When he shows up on the ship with Downey, we went back and reshot 2 of his lines, but I have no idea why, but his hair was completely out of continuity with the way his hair was when we originally shot it. So if you watch it closely, while Downey's yelling at him for showing up on the ship, his hair like completely changes in one cut and then it's back in the next cut. We didn't have enough time to put it through VFX to fix his hair. See, at Marvel, like there's so much money for VFX, you can kind of fix anything. It was one nobody caught until we were just ready to release the film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where I noticed something that you're talking about is more in the sound, because the sound design, like on the Gray Man, is extremely involved, complex, layered, specific. And there's a massive, we spent months and months and months working with our team to craft that. And you get it to the point where you're like, okay, everything's perfect. And then it goes into theaters, and every theater you're in, the speaker setup is different. They lean on this a little more, lean on that. You can't, there's not enough consistency theater to theater. So whenever we love going to screenings because we love feeling the energy in the room with the audience, but it drives me crazy because everything sounds different, and it's like, I'm just like, oh, why?
Mm-hmm. I would love you if we were in a screening with you with like Endgame and we hear 2 people behind us go, oh fuck, and we're like, what is that? Like, it's like the audio to the sound. The audio is
leaning too much to the left versus right. We mixed this perfectly.
Yeah.
We'll move on from Marvel, but I just want to say, can you I want somebody, because we're guilty of this too. We asked the question like, oh hey, we just had like Wyatt Russell on. We asked, would you return to be a captain, U.S. agent again? I want, whether it's you guys or someone, one day to get that question and to be like, nah, fuck that shit. We don't want.
I would never.
I want somebody to say no one time. Be like, nope,
never coming back.
I never want to. Just even if you're just joking, I want that to happen one time, because I know like the headline will be stunning to finally read that. They're like, Russo brothers say no thanks,
never again. Well, a year or two after that, we'd have to reverse ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and hell freezes over.
Yeah, much older project from you guys. I'm doing a rewatch right now. It's my favorite show. Tied for favorite with the West Wing of all time, Arrested Development. We actually didn't really get to ask you guys about this. Yeah. For those who don't know, you guys directed many of the early episodes of Arrested Development, some of the best. Many people think Top Banana is the best one. Individual favorite moment of that show? Do you have one? I know it's very hard to pin down.
I think my favorite was Pure Pressure, where the hot cops show up to arrest George Michael.
I just rewound that about 3 times the other night.
We shot that at like 2 a.m. on a dock in Marina Del Rey. And the cops were just like, you're supposed to be out of here an hour ago. And we're scrambling to shoot that thing. It was crazy. but that one always makes me laugh the hardest.
The thing that's been, for some reason, this has been popping in my head over the past couple of months, like randomly at night when I'm in bed, and I can't get it out. And it's a very simple thing, but it's just, it's just Jeffrey Tambor saying to Jason Bateman, there's always money in the banana stand. I just can't get that phrase out of my head.
It's just a timeless, like a nonchalant way he says it in so many different moments in those early episodes. It's just,
and then the payoff too.
And I will say we mentioned this to Tony Hale.
Yeah,
we've talked to Tony Hale twice. NPR, I don't know if you've ever seen NPR, did an insane breakdown of all the interconnected jokes in the show and where every single running joke first shows up. It's the craziest website I've seen for a TV show. It was there like a lot of planning with early jokes in Arrested Development? Because it's crazy because you're in the biggest interconnected thing ever with Marvel, but Arrested Development, I mean, even just the little hints to like Buster losing a hand, that was even early on in like the first season.
Lucille. I mean, our brains were all a lot sharper back then. We were younger in those days. But I think we used to sit on set. I mean, it was Anth and I, and there was a writer from the show, Chuck, or Mitch would come down when he could. And it was a lot of just, with the actors, everybody was so clever and sharp that we're always doing call forwards, call backwards. We knew what was coming. So, there's lots of little jokes being thrown in all over the place. Anth and I love, and I think this is where we got our penchant for Easter eggs, is hiding things in the frame, doing weird background jokes. We did the pilot of that show, so we were sort of involved from the inception of it through season 2, at which point I think we left to work on another show. It was a Community.
I think so. Yeah.
And then I think it was earlier. It was later than that. Our heads were in that in a way that, where it was all we all thought about every day we woke up. And
I'll say this too about that. I think it speaks to the fact that like our brains kind of work in that way. We think outside of the specific narrative that we're in at the given moment. And I think that's why we took so well to the Marvel storytelling and why we're so interested in sort of narrative universes. But that's kind of like an early version of it in that Arrested work, where you're thinking about things that may happen in the future. Callbacks are one thing, but when you're sort of doing a sort of a, what's it called when you do it before?
I say call it a call forward.
Call forward, call forward. I mean, that's a different form of thinking, and it's just something that's really appealing to us.
From losing a hand to Infinity Stones, it just looks good.
Full circle.
Some of you guys in gloves in hand.
Big hand. We are intertextualists. We do like making jokes referring to other things that we've worked on. We like being very self-aware, self-reflexive, because we grew up like you guys. We just would talk about movies with our friends all the time, and we'd crack jokes about them. We'd say the lines from them, everybody hanging out in a car, and somebody would just drop a line from a movie, and everybody would start laughing. That's what we like, So all of our films have some fuckery in some way in them, and they're we're guys who have a hard time taking anything seriously, so we sort of make fun of our stories as much as we try to revere them. So you get this like strange hybrid of tone where you're laughing, but there's also some jeopardy.
You guys produced a movie recently that I absolutely loved, which is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just got my Blu-ray in a couple of days ago. What was your guys? And this is something interesting that I think you feel like you guys are doing now in the producing sort of role. Like you help produce a movie from a guy who's a stuntman / stunt choreographer turned director. You're directing some of the stuff with the Daniels, and the Daniels are some of the most like eccentric, eclectic filmmakers there are out there. Is that something you guys are more interested in doing now, like moving forward, like branching out and working with directors that maybe are from the non-traditional path, so to speak?
Yeah, we have very eclectic taste.
And it speaks to our origin, really, as filmmakers. We started off as very micro-budgeted indie filmmakers in Cleveland, just sort of doing our thing for no money. And then we were able to bring our first movie to the Slam Dance Film Festival, and Steven Soderbergh just ended up seeing it at that festival on a recommendation, and he reached out to us, and he helped us produce our next movie, a real movie after that. But that was an incredibly pivotal moment in our lives. And I think that's something that we want to pay forward. When we can reach out and sort of help people make films that maybe nobody else may lend a helping hand to, and we can enable a film that might not get made otherwise with filmmakers who might not be able to do it otherwise. That's a really important role that we can play. And we know how important it is because it happened to us. When Soderbergh was interested in our movie, he was basically the only one. Nobody else had any reaction to that movie.
It was a completely insane film.
Yeah, but sometimes fellow artists can see something special in your work that the business may not be able to see. And so we do think like that is our role now. That we
also had a weird upbringing where we weren't commercial filmmakers when we started. We were indie guys, and our first movie was as nuts as Soderbergh's Schizopolis or, anything the Daniels have done. So they really reminded us a lot of ourselves when we first started the businesses. Soderbergh and Clooney taught us how to work in the commercial space, and I think that's why there's always this sort of veneer of like a wink and a nod to everything we do, because it's not in the commercial space, because it's not something that came to us naturally. So it's fun now that we have achieved commercial success, that we can, help open the doors, help open the door for others who are playing around with more dramatic experimentation. Daniel, certainly, like you said, there's nobody more eccentric right now making movies.
Between Swiss Army Man and this, it's crazy that Everything Everywhere All at Once is somehow not as crazy as the previous Daniels movie. But
it's crazy that like audiences all over the world are falling in love with it. It is such an eccentric movie. It's Dada-esque.
Highest grossing movie of the A24s in their entire history. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, amazing. But there's real emotion, and I think that was a critical part of it. When we saw Swiss Army Man, I watched it with my kids, and I absolutely loved it. Well, they're all teenagers, right? So
all right.
We loved the film, but I remember thinking, like, that's when I was like, oh, these guys remind me a little bit of us. If we just push them this way, like 10 degrees, there might be slightly more accessibility in a way that could be ignitable, because they're like Michel Gondry, where they're so good at like in-camera tricks. They're so polished at the way that they've developed their style, and I think it felt like, look, if they did something within a genre, that it might anchor the insanity in a way, and as long as there was real heartfelt emotion, it could be explosive. And it was a very personal movie for them, and I think that's what audiences are reacting to, is that genuine emotion, that mother-daughter story that's at the heart of all of the crazy.
We said it too when we did a review, the idea that in a time where the multiverse is crazy, but it is so tied heavily to existing IP, that a multiverse movie came out with no existing, it's kind of original. It's cool. It's just straight. And that's coming from Marvel fans, but that's just flat out cool to see. It
connects with everyone. It's awesome.
Towards the end here, run out of time. The Gray Man, again, 15th in theaters. See, in theaters, then guess what? Watch it on Netflix a few days later. We didn't even get to the other one. I mean, we didn't get to Hercules. We talked about Hercules last time. We won't. We won't press.
That's slowly. I mean, Disney moves at their own pace there, but Guy Ritchie's now involved.
Director tied though. Yeah, that's
big director.
So we're slowly making baby steps towards production of that one.
Love it. Well, thanks again, as a fellow Cleveland Browns fan. Thanks again for how our producer's a Bengals fan. I don't let him talk though. Still bitter. Thanks so much, guys. Check out The Gray Man. Hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.